You're listening to The Philosopher's Note on Body-Mind Mastery. More wisdom in less time.
Hi, this is Brian. Welcome to the Philosopher's Notes on Body-Mind Mastery, Training for Sport and Life by Dan Millman. We'll start with a quote. Whether you are a world-class competitor, weekend athlete, or fitness enthusiast, this book will help you overcome self-created hurdles and reawaken the natural athlete, the body-mind master inside you. Body-Mind Mastery provides a clear map to a less stressful, more meaningful approach to practicing sport and life. It's not about dedicating your life to your training, but dedicating your training to your life. End quote. That's Dan Millman from Body-Mind Mastery. So Dan Millman is a former world champion athlete and gymnastics coach at Stanford and UC Berkeley. He's also a really cool, wise guy. If you've read his classic semi-autobiographical book, Way of the Peaceful Warrior, that was recently made into a cool movie starring Nick Nolte as Socrates, you know how Dan brilliantly weaves Western and Eastern thought into a practical philosophy for our modern lives. This book is all about integrating our body and minds to create a deep sense of wholeness. As Dan says, quote, "You are a dynamic whole, greater than the sum of your parts. By integrating your body, mind, and emotions through training, you reshape your life." End quote. You don't need to be an athlete to dig the wisdom, and I trust you'll enjoy the big ideas I've selected to help us get our body-mind mastery on. We'll start with the first big idea, vigor, vitality, and activity. Quote, "Remember that vigor and vitality is a matter of activity, not necessarily formal exercise. I'm always amazed to see cars driving around and around looking for the closest space to the health club, so they can get on a treadmill and walk 3 miles. Park the car at the farthest point from the store. Use the stairs instead of the escalator or elevator. Carry your groceries, garden, and do other activities that keep you moving. You will add more years to your life and more life to your years." End quote. Got a smile at that vision of peeps waiting for the closest spot to the door at the gym and laughing at myself because I think I've done that at least once or twice back in the day. This book is packed with wisdom, and if you've read any of Dan's work, you know that he always comes back to the simple stuff. So we'll start there. What little things can you do in your day-to-day life to increase your activity level, to enhance your vigor and vitality? The next big idea is the fear of failure. Quote, "Ultimately, fear of failure generates a vicious circle that creates what is most feared. To break this cycle, you need to make peace with failure. It isn't enough to merely tolerate it. You need to appreciate the failure and use it. Body-mind masters have made peace with failure, treating it like an old friend playing a practical joke. The greatest inventors, artists, and athletes have all failed many times. Babe Ruth was the home run king of his time, but also the strikeout king." End quote. The fear of failure. Here's what Michael Jordan, one of the greatest athletes ever, has to say about failure. Quote, "I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed." That's from a great Nike commercial. Super strong. You can check it out at philosophersnotes.com/videos. We've got a couple dozen amazing videos. Robert F. Kennedy tells us that, quote, "Only those who dare to fail greatly can ever achieve greatly." And David Viscott says, "In the end, the only people who fail are those who don't try." What's your relationship to failure? Have you made peace with it and gone so far as to see it as a necessary part of doing anything, let alone achieving greatness? Sweet. Next big idea, rockin' it baby style. Quote, "If babies held the same tendency towards self-criticism as adults, they might never learn to walk or talk. Can you imagine infants stomping? Arg, screwed up again. Fortunately, babies are free of self-criticism. They just keep practicing." End quote. I love that. Looking to babies as an example of how to learn is so powerful. Throw yourself back into your diapers and then imagine approaching learning how to walk or talk from your current mode of being. It's a seriously amusing and frightening thing to imagine. And the simple fact is that most of us would probably never learn to walk if we treated ourselves then the way we do now. As we move into the domain of the unknown and pick up a new skill, whether it's physical in sports or emotional in relationships, let's be a little kinder with ourselves and have fun, celebrating the tiny improvements and laughing when we fall on our diapers. As Dan says, quote, "So be gentle with yourself. Show yourself the same kindness and patience you might show a young child, the child you once were. If you won't be your own friend, who will be? If, when playing an opponent, you are also opposing yourself, you will be outnumbered. You probably would find it cruel and unnecessary to say to someone, 'You are really stupid. You keep making the same mistakes. You should give up. You'll never be any good.' Yet we think it's okay to say the same things to ourselves." End quote. So get your baby on the next time you're bold enough to learn something new, will you? I promise to do the same. All right, the next big idea is the moment of truth is now. Quote, "Freedom from mental distraction equals power. Olympic champion weightlifters not only have powerful bodies, they have powerful minds. The same quality of attention free us, in the moment of truth, from any thought of self-concept, criticism, or fear. Body-mind masters eventually come to the realization that this, in every moment, on or off the field, is the moment of truth." End quote. That's fantastic. Some strong statements are packed into that little paragraph. First, freedom from mental distraction equals power. Do you think an Olympic weightlifter would be an Olympic weightlifter if only his or her body was strong? Of course not. It takes an incredibly strong mind to train like an Olympian, and perhaps an even stronger mind to shut out all the fear, doubt, criticism in the moment of truth, allowing all of one's power to come through in their performance. Amazing. Of course, the same holds true with us. Are you free from mental distraction throughout your day? Whether it's at the gym where you can meander through a workout or intensely focus your energy, or in the car driving your kids to school, where you can be fully present or distracted, or in the office, of course, where you can choose between presence or distraction. Freedom from mental distraction equals power, Dan says, begs the question, how's your power? How free are you from mental distraction? I love this thought too. He says, body-mind masters eventually come to the realization that this and every moment, on or off the field, is the moment of truth. The moment of truth isn't about the championship game. It's about this moment, and this moment, and this moment, and each moment gives us an opportunity to be fully present and fully alive as body-mind masters. Or, of course, not. Makes me think of the Greek word arete. The word literally translates as virtue or excellence, but has a deeper meaning, something closer to striving to do your best moment to moment to moment. The classic Greek philosophers like Socrates and Plato and Aristotle said that happiness was the essence of life, and that if we want to live with happiness, we need to live with arete. How? Make this moment your moment of truth, and this moment, and the next, and the next. We do that, and there's no room for regret, anxiety, disillusionment, etc. So let's free our minds of distraction, fully show up in this moment, and flex our power. The next big idea is backing up to get a running start. Quote, "Now that you have a better understanding of the mental mechanisms that influence your performance, you'll realize that although we all find ourselves in slumps occasionally, we don't need to get stuck in them. And when you feel like you're going nowhere, or even slipping backward, you may actually be backing up to get a running start." End quote. That's classic. Dan establishes the fact that we all have slumps on occasion. When we can see the dynamics of growth and excellence, we don't need to suffer the slumps. They're just part of the deal. And if you feel like you're going nowhere, or even slipping backward, remember that you might just be backing up to get a running start. So is there an aspect of your life where you might be able to apply this mojo? Get on that. The next big idea is relax and stay focused on constructive action. Quote, "Body-mind masters do not deny or repress their feelings, but learn to stay physically relaxed even under stressful situations. Even when feeling angry, fearful, and sorrowful, breathe evenly and fully. Keep your body relaxed. You have much more control over your behavior than you do over your thoughts or emotions. So paradoxically, the best way to master your emotions is to let them be, stay relaxed, and focus on constructive action. So accept your emotions as natural to you in the moment, without trying to fix them. Know your purpose or goal, not someone else's, and do whatever you need to reach that goal, whether or not your emotions or moods help or hinder you. End quote. That shows up in a chapter entitled Emotional Talent, in which Dan talks about the importance of mastering our relationship to our emotions. He talks about the fact that, quote, motivation, like all states, comes and goes, rises and falls. I certainly didn't feel motivated all the time during my gymnastics career, but I trained 6 days a week for more than 4 hours a day for years by keeping my eye on the goal. Although motivation comes and goes, you can always rely on your will, end quote. Dan's a huge advocate of the fact that while we don't always feel great or have the ability to instantaneously alter our mood, we do always have control over our behaviors. He likes to describe our emotions as kind of like clouds passing by, and says that just as you can't control the weather, you can't control your emotions. Sometimes you're fired up, sometimes you're not. As he says, quote, life demands much of us, on and off the playing field. Emotional talent is the capacity to stimulate and draw upon our natural fountain of energy, to learn to blow into our own sails. We develop emotional talent not by relying on motivation all the time, but by applying our will no matter how we feel. End quote. Amen. This is a really big idea Dan explores more in his great book, Everyday Enlightenment. You can see my notes on that where I go into some more detail on it. Plus, he introduced me to a guy named David Reynolds, who integrates Zen Buddhism ideals with Western psychotherapy in what has become one of my favorite books, Constructive Living. Check out the book and my notes on it for more mojo. In the meantime, know this: wherever you are, whatever you feel, remember your goal and ask yourself this question: now, what needs to be done? Well, now, what needs to be done? For now, it's the next big idea. Instant satori. Quote, take your keys, a piece of fruit, or any handy object and go outside. Throw the object up into the air. Staying relaxed and easy, catch it. Be sure to catch it, then come back inside and continue reading this exercise. Now, consider the moment the object was in the air. At that moment, you weren't thinking of what you'd have for dinner or what you did yesterday. You weren't thinking of anything else either. You may have been attending to thoughts before you threw it or after you caught it, but during the throw, you were pure attention, reaching out, waiting for the object's descent. In that moment, your emotions were open, and your body was alert and vitalized. A moment of satori. End quote. As Dan describes it, satori is a word from the Japanese Zen tradition that points to a sudden awakening or insight into our fundamental nature. And that exercise is one of the coolest, simplest ways I can imagine to guide us to this state of pure awareness and presence in this moment. Try it out, and may we live in many of those moments. The next big idea is the law of accommodation. Quote, your body is malleable. You can sculpt it over time with daily habits of diet and exercise. The law of accommodation reminds us that the body may change slowly, but it will change. End quote. The law of accommodation, dig it. It can also be described as the training effect, and basically describes the fact that your body and mind will accommodate itself to the load you put on it. So if you go out and start training for a marathon, although you might not be able to get past the first telephone pole on the first day, if you consistently show up and go just a little bit beyond your current comfortable threshold, you will, over time, develop the ability to run that marathon. Alternatively, if you lounge on the couch all day long, your body will accommodate to that. What a pleasant shape that is, huh? After I sold my first business about a decade ago and first got into living on purpose, largely inspired by Dan's Way of the Peaceful Warrior, by the way, which was the book that really set me on this path, I realized I'd have a hard time living at my highest potential if I had had a hard time getting out of bed. So I became a trainer so I could learn nutrition, exercise physiology, and all that good stuff. One of the coolest lessons I learned was the idea of consistency over intensity. It's much better to show up at the gym regularly for a basic workout than go off for a couple hours every other week, obviously. As Dan says throughout his books, it's much better to do something for a little bit every day than a lot once in a while. For example, it's better to meditate for a few minutes a day than for an hour once a week. It's better to move for 15 minutes or 5 a day than it is to train hard for a couple hours once a week. Another one of my friends and favorite teachers, Robin Sharma, says that the hallmark of great people is very simple: consistency on the fundamentals. Your body and your mind are malleable. Over time, and I'm stressing over time, if we're diligent, patient, and persistent, our bodies will shape toward our ideals and accommodate to meet the demands we place on them. But we've got to show up. So what are your fundamentals? And how's your consistency? How can you be a little or maybe a lot more consistent? Starting today, let's embrace the law of accommodation. The next big idea supports that. It is building new habits. Quote, this initiatory period of change may last from 1 to 6 weeks or even longer. Unless the desire to change remains strong, body and mind tend to return to old, familiar patterns. It takes time, from 3 to 6 months, for old habits to become obsolete. By the end of that time, you'll have adapted to a new pattern. In a sense, you'll have found a new way of life. End quote. Reminds me of Seneca, the classic Stoic philosopher born in the Roman Empire around the same time Jesus was born. He says this in his classic Letters from a Stoic. You can see the notes on that. He says, you have to persevere and fortify your pertinacity until the will to good becomes a disposition to good. Translated, you've got to put in the time and demonstrate some strong willpower so that your will to do the right thing becomes a disposition to do the right thing. He also says, this is Seneca, how much better to pursue a straight course and eventually reach that destination where the things that are pleasant and the things that are honorable finally become, for you, the same. So, are you building some new habits? Keep your goal really clear and your will really strong to shape a new disposition. One of my tricks is I like to say that certain things are non-negotiable. For example, I committed to meditating for an hour every morning right when I get up about 8 months ago. Now, I'd done a 10-day Vipassana meditation, but when I got back, it just didn't stick. Realizing the importance of training my mind in meditation as a powerful vehicle to do this, I decided to build the practice. Now, in the past, I'd only meditate when I felt like it. Yeah. This time around, I decided the commitment was non-negotiable. I knew I'd wake up some morning and not feel like it. And I knew, especially in the beginning, and I knew that it was on those mornings when the habit would either be installed or thwarted. So when I had the inevitable whiny, but I don't feel like it mornings, when I was able to conjure up all kinds of really sensible reasons why I deserved a day off, I told that part of myself that the practice wasn't up for discussion. It was non-negotiable. And now, 250 plus days into it, I'm grooving and excited to effortlessly cross the 1,000-day threshold and then go from there. Back to you. What new habit are you going to rock? You need to make it non-negotiable? Get on it. All right, and the final big idea is masters shine everywhere. Quote, masters of one art have mastered all because they have mastered themselves. With dominion over both mind and muscle, they demonstrate power, serenity, and spirit. They not only have talent for their sport, they have an expanded capacity for life. The experts shine in the competitive arena. The masters shine everywhere. End quote. As they say, particularly Leonardo da Vinci, one can have no greater or smaller mastery than mastery of oneself. They also say, how you do anything is how you do everything. With that, I say we go out there and shine. Well, that wraps up the note. I'll now share a little bit about Dan Millman, a few other notes I think you'll enjoy, and then some quotes from the sidebar. First, about the author of Body Mind Mastery, Dan Millman. He's a former world champion athlete, college professor, and coach, and best-selling author whose books, including Way of the Peaceful Warrior, The Life You Were Born to Live, and Everyday Enlightenment, have inspired millions of people in more than 20 languages. That's from the book. You can learn more about Dan at his website, peacefulwarrior.com or danmillman.com. Either one works. And if you like this note, I think you'll also enjoy the note on Mastery, a book by George Leonard, a book called Strength for Life by Sean Phillips, the note on Thrive by Brendan Brazier, and the note Letters from a Stoic by Seneca. Now for some quotes. Dan says, when climbing a mountain, define each step in the right direction as success. We learned the alphabet before we write words. It works the same way in sport and life. Many small successes add up. Aristotle says, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. Samuel Johnson says, in a contest between patience and power, bet on patience. Ben Franklin says, those who can have patience can have what they will. Dan says, allow rather than persist what arises in the present moment, inside or out. Let it be interesting rather than good or bad. Richard Bach says, what a caterpillar calls the end of the world, the master calls a butterfly. Hannah More says, obstacles are those frightening things you see when you take your eyes off the goal. Dan says, competence breeds confidence. And finally, Lao Tzu says, nature's way is simple and easy, but men prefer what is intricate and artificial. All right, well, that's a quick look at a great book, Body, Mind, Mastery, Training for Sport and Life by Dan Millman. Hope you enjoyed, and it's an honor to share these with you. Look forward to sharing more with you soon. Have a great day.
We hope you enjoyed this Philosopher's Note. Please go to www.philosophersnotes.com to download more.